No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hey everyone, it's Taylor, and I'm currently recording this laying on my back on the floor of the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. If I look up to my right, my favorite coffee shop there, Cartel. Why am I laying on the floor? I'll tell you why. Because a day before I started a 2-week run on the road, I threw my back out. And yet, you still got to go do the show. So that's what I'm doing. I'm heading to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'll be there for a couple days, and then I go from there to Scottsdale. Then I go from Scottsdale to Albuquerque, and then I go back to Scottsdale, and I'll be back home on November 4th for a couple days. But it's awesome. I'm loving it. You know, this business, we talk about it a lot, but it's either like you're really busy, like a little too busy, or you're twiddling your thumbs waiting for something to come along. And so as much as it is kind of crazy, I'm really excited that it's busy right now. And the good news is on Sunday when I go home, I pick up the family and they're going to drive with me to Scottsdale for that first run there. And so we're enjoying it. We're enjoying the journey, everybody. Hey, this week on the show, we've got a great guest. I'm so excited to have Harrison Lampert on the show. Great actor, was on the series Ghosted on TV. He's been in the incredible Burt Wonderstone. He's been on The Daily Show. He's a hilarious improviser and sketch comedy artist here in Los Angeles. He's part of the Groundling Sunday Company. And when he's not doing all of that, as if that wasn't enough, he's a very accomplished magician. And we have such a great conversation here. This was a fun one. This is one of those conversations that could have gone on for probably 2 or 3 more hours without even thinking. But we cut it early and we went and got some food, which my second favorite thing to having conversations on this show is having food with people after this show. It was a good one. It was delicious. Went to a place called Crimsey's in Burbank there, or North Hollywood. Crimsey's in North Hollywood, and if you've never been, it's delicious. It's like vegan Cajun food. And if that doesn't sound like the most LA Hollywood thing ever, I don't know what does. Well, guys, I'm going to lay here for a few more minutes until I go get on a plane. But right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the About to Break podcast, episode 93, with my guest, Harrison Lampert.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to About to Break. I'm your host, Taylor Hughes, and I'm so excited to be sitting here in North Hollywood, where it all happens. I'm sitting with Harrison Lampert.
Woohoo!
Thanks for doing this, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
And thank you for having me. We were in your home.
Yes.
I was here a couple weeks ago, and we recorded a podcast with your fiance, Kayla Drescher.
Yep.
And I had so many questions about the things I saw on this bookshelf.
Oh, yes.
And some of the things, there was one thing in particular she didn't know about. So you have a fake, like a foot, like a severed foot.
Yes, I have 2.
And here's what is interesting to me. The severed foot on the left is like you would buy in a prop shop, or, you know, it's Halloween time. You'd find, you know, it's this. If you want a severed foot, this is the time of year you want to go shopping for it.
Yes.
If you want a severed foot in April, you're out of luck. You got to go, you know, Amazon. But then there's a plaster version of that same foot.
Well, actually, they are both. So it came in a set of 2 feet. Right?
Okay.
Those are both the same foot. I painted one of those feet white.
Oh, so that's not plaster.
No, it's not plaster.
That's like latex or something.
It's exactly the same.
Okay.
It's plastic.
Okay.
But I just sprayed it as white as I could to make it look plaster, to make it look kind of like a statue.
Yeah. And it totally does. I thought it was.
Oh, thank you. The reason, so I a couple of years ago, so I'm involved over at the Groundlings Theater. I'm in the Sunday Company there. And I used to, before I was in the Sunday Company, kind of when I was still going through the program, I put on my own show I had a Thursday night. They used to do what was called the Thursday night mystery box show.
Okay.
And it was Thursday night, 10 p.m. After the Cooking with Gas show. And they had, and it was kind of like a lot of independent shows from people who were within the Groundlings community, Sunday Company alums, main company.
So this is a time for them to showcase themselves, their characters, or their story, or was it like one person shows?
It was kind of anything. There were improv groups that would do sets, and it was kind of up to the discretion of the person who booked it.
Yeah.
And so I had worked with him for a little bit, so we knew each other, and I pitched him my show that I had been doing. I started it in college, and I'm proud to say it's the longest titled show in Hollywood.
What is it?
So every time we do the show, the title gets longer.
You add a word to it or something each time?
Word or phrase, yeah. So like the most recent, I have to remember it, is the Comedy Extravaganza / Palooza working title with special guest appearance by Manischewitz Whimsy comes to LA at the Groundlings, back at the Groundlings Part 2 in 3D. So but that foot was for the Comedy Extravaganza / Palooza working title, sponsored by C.S. Lewis Baloney comes to LA at the Groundlings, back at the Groundlings.
Sponsored by C.S. Lewis
Baloney.
Yeah. C.S. Lewis Baloney.
It was a character that a couple of friends of mine and I put together in college.
Okay.
And I brought him out here for a brief appearance. It's a very insane piece of theater. It's crazy.
I want to see it so bad.
I have a video of it.
Do you?
I'll send it.
Oh my gosh, man.
To you. It's so crazy.
And at some point during this show, you required a fake statue of a foot.
The show was a combination of stand-up comedy, sketch comedy, and magic.
Oh, great.
And so it was about an hour-long show.
Okay.
And I wrote the show, and I directed the show, and I performed in the show.
Yeah. So
everything was in my style, in my tone of what I wanted to do, which is one of the reasons I think it kind of built in a certain way. But one of the sketch ideas one of my running sketches was a sketch called How It Actually Happened. So I would take a historical event because I love history.
Yeah.
And I would skew it and just kind of make a sketch about what I think actually happened. What you think
actually happened. Yeah, because all history is, let's be honest, we only write the good stuff or it's slanted toward like making someone look like the hero that wasn't.
Right, exactly. And so
that's a great premise, man.
Oh, thank you. So this sketch was it was how Michelangelo was commissioned to paint the Sistine Chapel.
Okay.
So I used my Art of the Western World class that I took in college.
Yeah.
And some of the facts I learned in that, because the Pope at the time was Pope Julius II.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked Michelangelo to do it. And I didn't realize this. I learned this. Michelangelo didn't really want to do it.
Really?
He was a big grump.
He didn't want to paint the Sistine Chapel?
He didn't really want to do it. And he did it. And, but he was known as like a big grouch. And so
an angry artist is such a great.
Yeah, exactly. And so the whole sketch was Pope Julius trying to get him to paint the Sistine Chapel. So I played Pope Julius II.
Okay.
And my friend Daniel played Michelangelo. And then we had another character, Raphael, who was a contemporary at the time, who was known to, and I exaggerated it, but he was kind of like kind of a prankster, jokester type archetype in the sketch. But like in the School of Athens painting, he painted Michelangelo in there as a big sad sack. And so you see him in there. And so I had Michelangelo pop in, but I needed that foot to make it look like he was working on something. Because that was like the project he was working on. Right. So he's like, I'm a sculptor.
Yeah.
Because that's what Michelangelo considered himself. He's going to be like a sculptor more than a painter. And so Pope Julius comes in and he's like, I need you to do this. And then Michelangelo, I'm working on this, foot. And then, and so that was the foot we used for that sketch.
It's amazing to me when you think about like our great artists of the past or these icons that we look up to, and you realize that most of them, I mean, Michelangelo would have been different, but most of them didn't ever realize any success while they were living.
Of course, yeah.
Like, I mean, Picasso only sold like a couple paintings or something while he was around, or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
I think something like that.
But then like also the idea that this great art that we look at, sometimes they did begrudgingly.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they were just like, whatever, like I'm more into this medium. This is just this thing I do.
Right. It's all relative in a way, you know, like you look at things, and that's similar to things from the 70s or the 80s and the 70s in comedy of that era. And you're like, and then you look at it now and some of it doesn't hold up, but in that time it was like, it was the thing.
Oh, groundbreaking.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's
or vice versa, you know, or opposite where, you know, you see a comedian who may not have done well and then you look back and you're like, this was incredible.
Yeah. This person was a genius.
Yeah.
It is weird, the subjectivity of art, that it's like, you know, and as a performer, we all deal with this, that you create this thing and you're excited about it and you're passionate about it. And then you put it out there. And then the audience tells you if it's good or not.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I mean, it was I've always kind of, for me, when I approach something, I learned this in college. My professor, Ed Sobel, at the time, he taught history of theater history. And he brought up an extremely good point. And I've always kind of taken it with me whenever I'm analyzing something or critiquing something. And that's knowing the difference between what's good and what you like. Because there is a difference. And you can like things that are good.
Right.
And you can also like that. He would always use the expression, he would always say, as an example, he's like, I love the show 90210. Is it a good show? No.
Right.
But I like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Personally,
yeah,
I am a sucker for those, like, not horror movies, but those, like, classic monster movies.
Oh, yeah. Like Frankenstein or like
like those
Creature from the Black Lagoon. That kind of stuff.
I love the movie Van Helsing.
Okay.
With Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
And I love League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
The film that ended Sean Connery's career.
Moment of silence.
You know, are they great movies? You know, I love them.
Yeah.
But, you know, look at them, you know, objectively and you know, they may not be the best. And so that's kind of the idea of you know, whenever I approach, you know, anything, and, you know, like, audience, everything is subjective, you know, but it's nice to have, like, we used to use, when we analyzed plays, we'd be like, okay, what makes a good play? Yeah. You know what I mean? And liking it is not an objective form of analysis in a way, because, you know, when you're like, what do you think of it? Oh, I like it. Yeah. Well, why? Why do you like it? You know, and is that what makes it good? Because you can say, like, so, you know, having kind of, so we used to use Aristotle's Poetics as a framework for analyzing plays. You know, what was it trying to do? What was the purpose of the play? Was it a character-driven play, a linear, you know, a plot-driven play, character study or a plot, or, you know, what was it trying to get across, and was it getting that across? How was it? Is that
really what people took from it?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I think, you know, and then you have the other side where, like, as entertainers and things, you know, you want to entertain people. Right. And so, you know, ideally, the ideal is to be able to combine the two.
Yeah. It's a weird, last night I did a show, every now and then I'll do family shows in a theater, or, you know, where it's, you've got grandparents and kids and parents together, and those are always really fun. And last night, I always keep extra stuff just if I feel like I need it, you know? Yeah. So I always have, if I'm doing a family show, I've always got the linking rings in my bag. I hate the linking rings. Yeah. I hate performing it. I feel like there's just other things I enjoy more. Yeah. So I had those slated in the show. And then about halfway through the show, I felt like, damn, I need to do the linking rings. Like, I just needed something that gets kids involved and that parents can watch them do something funny. It's one of those things that's like, it's not my favorite, but people stinking love it. Yeah. So it's always that balance of, as an artist, I was like, okay, one for me, one for them, one for you. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Trying to do enough things that you like, that you still care about it. Yeah. But
And kind of maybe making those things, trying to make those tricks performable in a way that you still enjoy doing them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For years, I stopped doing, I used to do a cut and restored rope when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this routine I really, it was a fun routine. And then I stopped doing it. And then a couple years ago, I booked an event like at Thanksgiving time for this company.
Mm-hmm.
It was their company anniversary. And then they asked me, would you come back next month and do our Christmas party? And I'm like, oh, I need a whole nother 45 minutes of material.
Yeah.
So I pulled out stuff from I did the cut and restored rope, and people love it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things too, where maybe it's because everything's digital now. And so people just assume that magic is done with electronics or whatever.
Yeah.
There's something about a piece of rope and a pair of scissors that now gets this reaction it didn't before.
Right.
It's just weird.
Yeah. So for a long time, so I've been doing the Wonder Box. You know the Wonder Box?
Mm-mm.
It's this silver box. It's a production box.
Okay.
So you show it empty and then you pull out handkerchiefs from it.
Oh yes. Yeah. It has like flaps on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So my dad was trying to get me to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not doing this trick.
Yeah.
And he's like, you should do it. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. Eventually I'm like, shoot, I need an opener. I need to fill time.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, give me the box.
Yeah.
So I took the Wonder Box and I started doing it. And now it's one of my main things that I do.
Wow. And it's it becomes something you enjoy as well.
I love doing it.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy because, when I first started doing it, it was fine. And as I kept doing it, you find new things with it.
Right,
you find
right.
new things. The trick itself for me hasn't changed. I pull out 5 handkerchiefs total for the whole trick. The whole trick last time it was about 8 minutes.
Wow.
One handkerchief is really long.
Yeah.
But it's like a 9 foot. It's not that long.
Right.
But I pull out those 5 handkerchiefs and it's about 8 minutes.
Wow.
And I usually, every time I do it, I get it timed. My goal is to get it to 10.
Wow. And is it just, you have a story that goes with it or?
Yeah, there's kind of a story. I do some yelling, a bit of crying. I always, I make it a point to cry at least once per set.
Okay. Legitimately cry?
No, just
I usually cry post-show on my way through the Taco Bell drive-thru. Like, what happened?
No, I like to. I like to when I do magic or a lot of things, and this is from what I've done at the Groundlings and through theater and acting and stuff. Is I really like to let emotion drive a lot of things I do.
Yeah.
Because that just makes it move in a certain way that I like, and it allows for different textures and levels and things like that. And so, but it's fun. I love that little box.
Dude,
it's
now I gotta see you do it. I gotta see you do. I was so excited driving over here. I told my wife because on the program, I usually have a magician or a comedian or an actor and so it's always fun when I get to sit down with someone who you do all of this. I
try
improv, stand up, magic, acting. I was so excited. I'm like, we're going to talk about magic, but other things too.
Yeah.
When did what was your intro into entertainment? So you're a little kid.
Yeah, I started when I was 10.
Okay. Brothers, sisters?
I have a younger sister.
Okay.
We're very different people. She's not into the entertainment field.
Okay.
But I kind of got into both theater and magic at the same time in a way. It's summer camp. And at summer camp, I started doing some of they had a theater elective.
Oh, that's cool.
And I took it.
Where was this at?
It was so I'm from Philly, right outside Philly, Pennsylvania. And so this was in Warminster, Pennsylvania, Twin Oaks Day Camp, which is no longer around, which is sad. It was a really nice day camp. They had like a theater elective, and so I was like, I see like some people in my bunk were doing it, and they were having a blast, and it looked really fun. And I was like, oh great, I want to get to be a part of this.
Different sketches or skits
just
or
theater,
like,
just plays. So they did the first one I got involved with was Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, that's cool.
And I played 2 roles. I was Fiedka and the rabbi. And my mom was so proud
that you were the rabbi.
I was the rabbi. And I loved it. I loved doing that.
Yeah.
And then the next year, I got to be Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls Jr.
Guys and Dolls. They took out all the sex stuff.
Yes. So I got to do that, and I had a blast. And I was like, this is really fun. And so then at that summer camp, one day they had a magician come and perform for the campers.
Okay. So just like the nighttime activity or whatever.
It was just at one point. I don't remember why they brought him in.
Yeah.
I remember who he was.
You do?
Yeah.
Is he still around?
He is still around. Actually, his daughter and I went. It was a year younger than me in grade school.
Oh wow.
But he did the appearing cane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to try that.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was great. And I was like, this seems like it'd be really fun. So I started doing that. And the only trick I wanted to get was the appearing cane.
Yeah.
For some reason. Because I saw him do it and I was like, that's...
Did you talk to him afterward? Or like, how did you even know where to get an appearing cane?
I didn't get an appearing
now
cane.
they're selling them on Amazon as like,
yes.
Magical bow staffs.
Yes. It took me a while before I actually got an appearing cane, but I wanted to just get into magic.
Yeah.
And so I went to a store. I was at a store called Zany Brainy.
Nice.
It was a kid's store. Like, it was a really cool store. It's closed, but it was like, I don't know if they had it outside of where I lived, but it was all like puzzles and games
and mind game kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mind stuff and things that really worked your brain.
Yeah.
And they had a magic set, and it was all wizard themed.
Okay.
And I was like, ooh, this is cool. So they had like a floating cauldron.
Nice.
And like they had a die box effect.
Really?
That was with like a wizard escaping from a jail cell.
Oh, that's
and you look at it and you're like, that's pretty creative.
Yeah.
For a magic set.
Right.
But it was all made of like paper and all that stuff.
Right.
So you put it together yourself.
Cardboard wand and
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I remember like doing it, and I took I was following the instructions for the die box thing, and the die box wasn't a traditional die box because so what it was this a single box, like a cube.
Okay.
And one side was and it had 2 sides.
Okay.
2 jail sides. One side that you put the wizard in, and then the other side when you turn it, and then the wizard is gone.
Yeah.
And I put the wizard in the way it said, and I closed the jail cell. I'm looking at the wizard, and then it says, throw the box in the air, and the wizard will be gone. And I'm like, okay. So I threw it, and I caught it, and the way I caught it was on the other side.
And the wizard vanished.
And the wizard vanished.
You blew your own mind.
I blew my own mind. I'm like, where the heck did this thing go? How did this happen? And then I turned the box, and I'm like, oh, I see how this works.
Yeah.
Oh, and so I started just using this. Those were my props, and I would do
it's like shows for the family or whatever.
Like shows for the family. The first show I ever did, and I had like the Marshall Brodeen set and stuff like that, and so I had the cups and balls and all those classic magic box set stuff. And the first show I ever did, that was my professional debut. I think I was maybe 11 or 12.
Okay.
And this is one of the stories I tell when I do stand up. But it is a true story. The first show I ever did, I used all these props. And it was at a senior citizen center, and they booed me. And they heckled me and all that. They were terrible.
Getting booed by senior citizens is amazing.
Yep. It was 9 a.m. show.
Oh.
My great grandmom got me the gig, And I started at 9, and then everyone started coming in at 9:05.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're all yelling at me, saying just like they can't hear, they can't see what's happening, they don't understand. Now,
I'm confused.
To be fair, this is my first ever show.
Right.
I'm 11 or 12.
Yeah.
I'm not very good.
But those gigs are, I mean, performing for senior citizens is hard anyway.
Yes, it is.
You know, even thinking about, I can't bring a lot of people up to help, or,
right.
You know, being careful with volunteers.
Right. And I never, at that time, used volunteers. I just did the tricks.
Here's the trick.
Yeah.
And then you take 3 minutes to put it away and get the next one.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this one woman just in the second row was just going, I just looked up, and she's just going, terrible. Terrible. It was a tough show, but you know, you got to start there, and then you work your way to other things.
I spent my life savings to live here, and this is the entertainment they bring in.
But then, so I was doing these little sets and stuff, and then so my mom is a big fan of the Philadelphia Eagles football team. They just won the Super Bowl. Which was very exciting. The first time they ever won the Super Bowl. Big fan of Philadelphia Eagles. She was in a line for an autograph at like a sporting goods store for some players.
Okay.
And the person in front of her, she overheard, was a magician. And they got to talking, and he was like, oh, great. So then I got involved. From him, he knew one of my mentors, my early mentors, his name's Arlen, in magic. He linked me up with him, and I got involved in the local Society of Young Magicians, which was the group that was there. And then I started doing that, and it is still, they're still there. It's still a great group. They had at the time, every year they would do, at the time when I was involved, they're at the Warminster Rec Center in Warminster Township, which is outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, that area of the country loves townships.
Yes,
Cranberry Township and Zelianople.
Yes, a lot of townships. And we would be at the Warminster Rec Center, and for Halloween every year they let us use the space, and we would put on a show for them. And so that's how. Which is great, because every year we'd be like, okay, we have to work on acts.
Yeah, you're going to have an audience.
We're going to have a show, and we got to work on this. So the first thing I did there was the Don Allen comedy Egg Can.
Okay.
You remember that?
Yeah, I think so. I remember what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of been drawn to comedy.
Yeah.
You know, while I was growing up, I always watched Monty Python and Mel Brooks. Oh, yeah. And
your folks into like comedy and stuff?
Yeah, they introduced me to them, and my grandparents introduced me to, like, you know, they would let me watch Police Academy.
Oh, wow. Cool grandparents.
Man. Airplane and all those things. And I loved comedy.
What does he mean by, do you like movies with gladiators?
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't understand everything.
Right. Later on, you go, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have watched that, but that was hilarious."
Yeah. But I always, I never used foul language as a kid, and I still don't.
Yeah.
I just don't.
But was it a family thing, or it just?
No, yeah. I mean, like, my grandparents, they always cursed all the time.
Yeah.
And they always they taught me all the curse words, and they try, you know, sometimes they would try and get me to say them.
Yeah. So it wasn't that you would get in trouble if you said it. You just, on your own, just weren't attracted to those words. Or,
right. And so that's, you know, and so, so like when I watched those things, they never affected me in terms of how I talked or behaved or anything like that. But I always loved them, and I loved watching. Like, I remember always wanting, like, I would sit next, like, my when we would watch it, and something would get my dad really good, and I loved seeing my dad laugh.
Yeah.
And I've always just kind of been I always loved comedy, and I've always loved learning about comedy, and so like when I started doing magic, I always wanted to lean toward doing comedic stuff,
right?
And and then just developing different things like that, and that's kind of where what stemmed, as I've been getting older, and I really kind of developed my voice, and so like when I was early teenager, before I went to high school, I was like, I had a couple of ideas for a career and what I wanted to do. And magic was one of them. I also wanted to teach. I wanted to open my own martial arts studio. I love martial arts.
Yeah. You did it growing up?
I did it. Yeah, I did. And I would go to tournaments and I would do a lot of different stuff. And then I got to high school, freshman year of high school, I got cast in The Odd Couple. And I was the only, I wasn't one of the lead roles or anything. I was just one of the friends, poker players.
Okay.
And I loved it so much.
Yeah.
I love doing it so much. As a lot of people when you get the bug.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I was like, this is what I want to do.
Theater.
I want to do just acting. I want to, and so, everything else was kind of like, okay, I know what I want to do now. And this is how, and so I'm working now. I know how I want to work to get to do that. And magic's always been a part of it.
Right.
Just because I've done it since I was 10.
Right.
And I've always done it. It's also, they all kind of go hand in hand.
Oh, totally. It's what's the old saying is a magician's an actor playing the part of a magician.
Right. And I think there are elements of magic that are great in acting, and there are elements of acting that are, I would say, imperative in magic. And that idea is a big soapbox of mine when talking about magic. But
talk about it.
Well, I think one of the things. So when I came out here, when I moved to LA, I started taking classes at the Groundlings and learning about the business out here in LA. And I love LA, and what's great about LA is there's so many different opportunities to try things and explore things. And there's so many different like small venues to try things and theaters, and it's a great hub of comedy and creativity. Right. Which I love. Sorry, I tend to lose my train of thought every so often. So I apologize.
You were talking about you have a soapbox when it comes to like the theatrics and magic.
Oh, yes. No, I just think that and if you watch a lot of magic, I think that some of the things that are missing within, and this is in no way saying this is every magician. There are a lot of magicians that incorporate everything, but a lot of magicians, I think, should learn how to perform. Yeah. And learn how to, you look at stylistically, American School of Magic and Spanish School of Magic and German School of Magic. And I'm a huge fan of the German School of Magic because the German, you look at a lot of them and there's character, there's nuance, there's story, there's theatrical, there's things have meaning and stuff. And then you watch other forms, and I think, the American School of Magic is big in this, is all about the trick and technique and making things look good. Right. Which is important. Yeah. But, it's also can be very boring. Right. And I think that, you have to, as a magician, be able to, especially, I think if you want to get in doing magic with comedy, you should learn how to do both separately. Yeah. Because then you look at with stock lines and with material, how many magicians will perform material that's not theirs? Right. Or say lines that aren't theirs, or watch a magician and say, oh, that's a great line, I'll try that.
Yeah, they're getting laughs, but they're not their laughs.
They're not their laughs, and also they don't have a specific voice. Yeah. And the idea of character in magic, I think, is a bit skewed because, there are magicians absolutely that have great characters. Right. But other magicians, I think, can misconstrue character for persona or something like that, because if you look at a character, it's not necessarily, character comes from my experience from point of view.
Right.
How does this person see the world?
Yeah.
Yep. And as opposed to how are they dressed and how do they talk and how do they act? And
I'm a steampunk character.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, well,
right.
Your style is that.
Right.
And that's great.
Yeah.
But character is very different. You can, like, I know for when I perform magic, I'm not performing as a character. I'm performing as myself. I'm performing as Harrison, but I'm performing as an exaggerated form of myself.
Right.
But that's not a character.
No.
I wouldn't say it's just it's just me amplified.
Right. Well, and the benefit of that is that when people connect with what you're doing on stage, they're actually connecting with you, and they'll remember you.
Right. Exactly.
Whereas most magic is not memorable because it's just, I saw a guy do that trick.
Right.
But they don't know the guy.
Right. Exactly. And so I think that's that. Like my approach to magic is from a performance standpoint, and because that's where I want to. That's just what. Excuse me. That's what I want to do, and that's where I come from, and that's my background. And so, and this is not to say, of course, that there aren't magicians that do this. They absolutely there are some incredible magicians that perform as different characters and do that sort of thing.
Right.
And there are other, and I think it's just an interesting thing to see.
The way the art, and maybe not the art of it is set up, but the fact that there are commercial tricks. You can buy a trick, and it comes with the props, and it tells you what to say while you do it. And so I feel like a lot of magicians, and I've said this before, but they're schizophrenic. When they do the cut and restored rope, they're Michael Finney. Yeah. And then when they do the egg bag, they're Jeff Hobson.
Right.
And you know what I mean? It's like, and when they do the floating table, they're Lo Sander. And they just, I wonder if some of it has to do with, because in comedy, knowing who you are and your point of view and your persona on stage, like all of that is such a big part of the lexicon in comedy. Like everybody's talking about that. Yeah. Everybody knows that you got to find your footing and figure out who you are and like what's your point of view. But in magic, that's not that's not a big part of the conversation. It's becoming more so.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people who are doing magic maybe aren't asking those questions even on a personal level of like, who am I and what am I about and what do I
want from the audience, or what do I want the audience to see from me or experience? I think that, like, if you look back with comedy specifically, comedy has always been prominent in the zeitgeist. It is, you've seen it. Yeah. People have seen it. You can look on YouTube and watch it. There's a huge history of it.
Right.
But it's been in the public eye for forever.
Yeah.
So people are exposed to it, and people can, like, audiences can see, like, if a comedian is telling another comedian's joke.
Right. Oh yeah.
They know that. They can call that out. Magic, I think magic is starting to become more in the public eye than it was.
Yeah.
But like, how many, audiences, some audiences, it's their first time ever seeing a magician. And so when they hear those lines, it's the first time they're hearing those lines.
Oh, this guy's so funny. Yeah.
Right. And so, there's not a sense, like, in a way, because magic is not on a wide scale as exposed as other things to the public eye. I think as performers, we need to hold ourselves more accountable.
Right.
But also, I think it's also in terms of your approach to magic is, because a lot of magicians, not all, of course, but, some magicians focus just on and think that magic is just in
fooling people,
is in either fooling people or just the trick itself.
Right.
And not necessarily, and, this is, of course, a big, I would say this is a big philosophical debate, and I don't know if there's a right answer, and I'm just coming at it from what I think is what works for me and what I've seen work for audiences and just my experience outside of magic. Because, and bringing that into magic. And I think that, for me, the performance, I think, like, how like in magic we use a wand, as a tool,
right,
to do an effect or to hide something, or whatever we use it for.
Yeah.
But we use a wand as it's a tool. To do something.
Yeah.
I sometimes think I'm under the idea sometimes that I think magic is a tool. Magic overall is a tool for a performer,
right, to
entertain them. So in a way, magic is a wand for a performer,
right?
It's just an extension of you and who you are and how you do that. Like, I'll come back to the Wonder Box because
yeah.
It's a very simple. It's everyone approaches a trick differently, and I think that because creating magic is very difficult, and creating new magic is extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's based on a limited set of impossibilities.
Exactly. And so I think it's like, okay, I'm using tricks that I know someone else would do.
Right.
And that's not bad because everyone has access to it and it's available to them. And as long as they're not stealing it,
right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They have every right to do it. But how are they doing it? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Outside of the technique.
Yeah.
Ideally, however you do it, your technique should be clean.
Right.
But to an audience, a double lift is just as strong as a crisscross cut.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's, they don't know. I had a friend the other day tell me, he's like, I was working on a project. I was getting caught up on an effect and how it was done and like the method. And he's like, dude, I'm not a magician. He's like, what's considered a level 2 to you is like already a level 8 to most people. Like,
right.
Like make it more about the presentation and the story and what you're communicating.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what at the end people, I think that's more important. How do they feel? What have, if you're trying to get a message across, have they got that message? If you're trying to make them experience something, and that's, with theater, you look at different plays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You look at farce. Mm-hmm. Farce's goal is to make people laugh, and that's the goal of farce.
Right.
And that's what it is.
That's what it is.
And they do that.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're looking at a social commentary, that's, how do they go about doing that?
Right.
And I think that those are questions that in magic you should be asking.
Right.
If you're not already asking it.
Yeah.
Because it just gives you more depth. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're not just coming out and doing tricks.
I think the fact that you have a theatrical background helps in that, because I think most magicians hide behind props because they're not comfortable. They don't like dead time. I mean, as a magician, if you go out without a deck of cards in your hands and you just have to carry an audience, I don't think most magicians could do it.
I don't know. But, I don't know.
For me, about 4 years ago, I made the decision that I started taking improv classes.
Oh, great.
And it made a huge difference.
It does.
A huge difference. Yeah. First of all, as a performer, as a solo performer, we're so used to going on stage and being in complete control. Mm-hmm. And even if you bring a volunteer up, you're managing that person to do what you want to do, And so to get into a situation where all of a sudden you're running improv scenes and you just have to be fully present and fully engaged and realize that if you have a great idea, but you don't get it out before this person initiates, you have to immediately let go of your idea
and go with that
and go with this and be wholehearted into it.
Right.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the About to Break podcast. 3 quick ways that you can help us out here at About to Break. The first one is to go on iTunes and leave us a review. If you enjoy the program, please leave us a 5-star review. Big thank you to everyone who's already done that. If you haven't yet, please jump over to iTunes. You'll need your iTunes account information, but you can click on the podcast, leave us a 5-star review.
just leave us a 1 or 2 sentence little blurb there. Let people know what you like about it. That helps us out huge. Second way you can help us at About to Break is by becoming a producer. Our goal is to have 1,000 people giving at least $1 a month to help offset the cost of producing these shows, and it does take time. And it is a passion project. I will continue putting these out for free because I think it's a helpful conversation. But anything you can do to help us out by producing the show would be awesome. Go over to abouttobreakpodcast.com, click on Become a Producer, and see what that's all about. Last thing that you can do, and this one is also a real simple way of making a difference, is just sharing the podcast. All right, when you see it out there on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, go ahead and follow along and then share it with your friends. Let someone else know how much you liked it, because it sure does make a difference. All right, back to the program.
It's amazing to me how taking, a couple years and just focusing on doing improv, it totally changed my magic.
Yeah, and it does. And what it forces you to do too is listen.
Yeah.
Listen to your audience. Listen to what's happening in the room, and allowing yourself to go with that and be present in the room as opposed to locked into your script. There's nothing wrong with having a script, you know, and the thing is you don't want it to sound scripted.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't want it to sound...
You don't want people to feel like they could have watched this on YouTube. Like, you want them to feel like this is happening right now for the first time.
Yeah. And like I used to work at Hollywood Toys and Costumes, and I used to sell magic there.
Yeah.
And oops, sorry, I bumped the table. I used to, and that's just being able, and they let me do a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Because I would mess around, but when you sell things, you want to give them something to latch on to, and something to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I can see why this can be fun, or something like that. And I developed like a lot of my act when I do a lot of my set in magic. Most of the lines have come from me just goofing around and messing around, and seeing how they play, and it's just always evolving. And even now, like when I do different things, I have kind of for my current set. And I'm now looking to start either changing, adding some new things in there. And I've been working on, other routines and stuff of like tricks that I've done, but I'm like, well, the presentation's not right for it. And then trying to crack them, trying to crack the presentation. And like, I remember when I was like, oh, this is how I'm going to do the homing card. This is how I'm going to do it. And finding that just from just trying and letting go and allowing yourself to, but you have to, I think, in order to do that in the best way, you have to understand who you are as a performer and what's your voice. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot easier to write for who you know than who you don't.
Yeah, it's true. That's why a lot of guys are great at giving advice to other performers, but then they don't apply it to their own act because they know what that person's character is. Right. They don't know who they are.
And they know like, oh, this is something that person would say.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, I just think that that's something a lot of, magicians may not look at. And I think, as they're doing good technique, and that's great. And a lot of people... a lot of people focus on just technique, and that's okay, but it's not. But
there's more.
There's more, and I think
the audience is missing out, and they're missing out as a performer.
Yeah, if you want to be a technician, that's great,
right?
And you can put together books and all these things and develop
or perform
things
for 5 minutes before people get tired of watching your technique.
Right? Exactly. And it's like. I think, if you come at it, because it's live theater, and I come at it when I do stand up, I come at it from the same way.
Yeah.
And that's just because that's what I'm drawn to, it doesn't mean it's the way everyone has to approach it.
Right.
But I love what, you're in theater, you're on a stage in front of an audience. you can make anything almost happen that you want to, you know, with sound, with lights, with a lot of different things, with language, playing with language. I love language.
Yeah.
I love Shakespeare, and I love, you know, all the little intricacies within the English language that are weird or bizarre, words that I learned. I used to have the Webster's Dictionary app, and I would look at the word of the day and try and memorize every word of the day as much as I could.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of new words.
Yeah.
And I love using those new words.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot of them right now anymore.
Well, words are ultimately it's what we have, right? It's how we communicate.
But also, yes, words are, but it's not the only way we communicate. We communicate through behavior. We communicate through emotion. And I think, you know, using all those, I think it's stronger as well. And I actually really learned this. So in Sunday Company, you get, it's a 6-month period of a season. And then afterward, you're evaluated and you're either asked to come back or not. And you can do that for a maximum of 3 times. So the maximum.
That's it.
And then that's it.
So a year and a half is the longest you can be in Sunday Company.
Correct. And so right now, this past season.
Yeah.
I was working with a new director, and she really, really, like, she was amazing, and she helped me really understand and delve more into the idea of doing, of behavior over dialogue, and how much can you say without actually saying it?
Huh.
And actually with words.
Right.
You know what I mean? How much can you
communicate your body language and
right. And that gets you all into your body, and some jokes you don't even have to write.
Yeah.
Because you're just living in it, and you're being, and people just want to watch that.
Right.
And they just want to see you be this person, you know what I mean? And live in that, and not need to have to say something.
Right.
And in improv, you know, especially, and I remember when I was when I was starting doing improv, you know, you want to talk, get everything, get all the information out, the who, the why, the what, the where, the how, or sorry, what, why, what do you do, where,
right,
who, and why. You want to say all that up front. Yeah. And you're like, sometimes you don't need to say that. And as you go and you start doing it, you're like, sometimes you can say it without.
Identify those through your actions or your behavior.
Exactly.
How you're reacting to your fellow partner, you know, scene partner.
Exactly.
People go, oh, they're having a fight right now. Or,
exactly. And then so you know that relationship.
Yeah.
Without even saying it.
Right.
And then you can, you know, you'll do maybe an organic line of dialogue just so everyone's on the same page and be like, okay, this is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But you know, just by a reaction, by listening and reacting to your audience, to any audience, to your scene partner, you can get laughs, you can get information across.
Right.
You know, it's you know, and then you find things that, you know, when you're really just being there, you find things that you never would have thought you could have written, you know? And a lot of my jokes and a lot of things like that. Like I remember when I really, I keep coming back to the silver box, the Wonder Box.
I'm going to have to see it, man. I'm going to make you do a performance.
I just really love it. Love doing it. So that's why I'm bringing it up. But I remember when Kayla and I were in Connecticut doing the Comedy Magic Monthly show in New Haven, which is a really fun show. It's in the back of a pizza place.
And the best, man.
And also one of the best pizza places.
Yeah.
The pizza is amazing. This was like, I did the silver box and I'm doing it. And this was the time where I really started finding it.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment of, so the moment when I start pulling the long handkerchief out, I start having a moment of self-reflection, which takes me in a way back to when I was a kid. And I have this whole moment of when my mom made a lot of chicken.
Okay.
And I just was tired of chicken. And I have this meltdown about this.
Yeah.
And I'm going, and I hear the audience, and I can feel like, okay. And I just go with, because I start getting angry.
Yeah. About chicken?
About everything. About chicken, and I have this whole scene by myself between me, my mom, and over this dinner situation. And that's when I'm like, okay, this is what this routine is.
Yeah.
And, following that idea and letting that idea, inspire the next idea, and listening just to myself and what I'm saying.
Right.
And a lot of times, and I think that's, when you approach, if you want to do comedy, and even if you don't want to do comedy, if you want to do dramatic work, that's great.
Yeah.
But then what you need to know what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Because I've seen some magicians say that they want to promote a message, but then you watch and you're like, well, what
was the message?
What's the message? And you can convey a message with more nuance and finding nuance and finding subtlety and because audiences are smart. They pick up on these things, and they love those things too. I found. Yeah. When they're like, oh, I see what's happening. Yeah. When you can, in a way, when things are discovered and not laid out for everything.
Buddy, this last week I was doing shows at the Loft up in Lake Tahoe. And, most of the time as a magician, you're going from place to place. You're in a different ballroom or someone's living room or a theater here or there. But so I'm always trying to figure out how can I create in a different environment every time, create these feelings and these moments. But there was something about being in the same space for a whole week that I came in the next night and I was like, what if I move this over here? Yeah. What if rather than having this thing on stage, it's in the audience? What if we shift that light, and when I say this thing, it illuminates this here? Yeah. There's something about being able to just take advantage of all these things, like you're saying, that it's not just about the trick. It's about, what is the whole story we're telling? What is the whole message we want to get across? Or what is the experience we want the audience to have? And realizing it's not just that $1,500 prop you bought that's going to leave them with wonder. Right.
Yeah. Because when you're doing magic for someone that doesn't know magic, it's going to be magical.
A Svengali deck would blow their mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anything. Yeah. A dove pan.
Right.
Anything.
Yeah.
And that's great. Yeah. You have that. And so then knowing that, everything else will just make it stronger, make the experience stronger, being like, this guy came in, did this. Yeah. I want to see him when he comes back. Yeah. Because of what he brought that was different. You know what I mean? That excited me, that made me think that and that's what theater is supposed to do. It's supposed to affect your audience, and it's supposed to, depending on what kind of theater you want to do. Right. It's supposed to leave them with a certain feeling of hopefully that you want them to be left with. Yeah. And with Sunday Company, it's amazing because, you get to perform every Sunday. Yeah. And try things and find things that work. And then you find things that don't. And then some weeks you're sitting there and you're like, it's been 5 months and what am I going to write? And then you're just talking and then it's like, oh, here's something we can write. And, you start, generation of ideas. A teacher at the Groundlings had a great idea, has a great method of just generating ideas. And I think it works. I think it works across the board is if you're trying to generate something, whether it be an idea for a sketch, an idea for anything, you take a pad of paper and a stopwatch and a pen or pencil if you'd like. Writing utensil is your choice. And you set the timer for like 7 or 8 minutes. Yeah. And then as soon as the timer starts, you just write log lines. Okay. I'll use log lines as an example just because that's what we did. Yeah. Just write ideas for a sketch.
Yeah.
Just anything. First thing that comes to your head. It's just free association.
And not judging it. Just whatever comes to mind.
Whatever comes to mind, write it down. And you cannot stop writing.
For 7 minutes
for however long.
Yeah.
You're just writing log lines. You can't, you don't go back and change things. You're not thinking.
Not editing. You're not analyzing. Yeah.
Nope. And so you write just anything. First thing comes to your head. You're going to get a lot of bad ideas.
Right.
But you can also find things that, like, because you're not thinking.
Right. Yeah.
You'll find things you wouldn't have been like, oh, this could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember I wrote Dads on Parade.
That's great.
And I'm like, this is very silly.
Right.
And could be a very silly sketch.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have written that if I was just sitting there trying to think of something.
Right. And some people would go like, well, I'm just writing a bunch of junk that's not worth anything. But if you go in 7 minutes, if you came up with one idea that led to something you could use on stage.
Yeah.
If I told you, hey, 7 minutes from now, you're going to have an idea that could be a great routine or a great sketch, or you'd be like, yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and that's just great, fun ways to generate ideas. But also they'd be ideas that are from your own mind.
Right.
You're not looking to other people and you're not looking to other voices. They're coming from your head. Mm-hmm. And it has to be in your voice in a way because you're free associating. You're not thinking. If you were thinking, you're like, well, this, and this, then it starts to warp it, right? Mm-hmm. But if it's just pure free association, you're like, this is what comes in from my mind. I know I have a tendency to go to food.
Right.
I love food.
Yeah.
So it's always on my mind. Mm-hmm. But, but that's me. Not everyone's going to think of food. Mm-hmm. It may come up. It probably will. Everyone loves food.
Right.
Hopefully.
When there's something about building something off an idea that came straight from your head, even if it wasn't something you would have thought of. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have a deeper connection with it. I feel like whatever comes out of that is going to be better because you'll be more excited. I'm always more excited to do something that some stupid idea that I had than someone's like, hey, what if you did this? And it's like, oh, it's a really good idea, but it's not mine. Yeah.
But just generation is great, and I think that's a great thing to have in any art form you do, and I think magic specifically is something that right now magicians in a way have to hold ourselves accountable for what we're saying and what we're doing, right? And saying, is this mine? Is this who I am? And is this getting, the reactions? And then, I think that's, that's a way to go about it.
It's important too. It's a good reminder that collaboration, and like when I was a kid, we'd always say like, look in front of a mirror. Mm-hmm. But we always tend to blink at the right moment to make ourselves look better, you know? Or you'd say like videotape yourself. Well, then you're only getting one angle and it's still you viewing yourself.
Right.
It's amazing how often, if I have a friend who comes to see the show, they'll have 3 or 4 great ideas. Yeah. Just because they're seeing it from a different perspective and they're seeing it without any whatever negative or positive feelings about yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's just, here's what I saw from the seat I sat in, you know?
I have a writing partner, who's one of my best friends, and he's such a great mind. He's such a great writer and comedian and performer. And we started working together when we were both in the Groundlings, working our way through the Groundlings, and we started writing together. And it's like, I had a project when I first moved out here. I wrote a pilot for it, and it was a really fun idea. I loved the idea, and when I first, I'm a very different performer and writer than I am when I first moved out here. You want
you want to grow,
you want to continue to grow, right?
New experiences,
exactly. And so I was like, it's missing something. It's not where I want it, and I don't know what to do with it. So I kind of just put it away. I just put it down for a little. And then very recently, I was like, you know what? We can work on this together. And so now we're collaborating on it, and he brought exactly what it needed.
Yeah.
And he brought to the table things I would never have been able to think of.
Yeah.
And it just made the project so much, in my mind, so much better and stronger and more filled out.
Mm-hmm.
And, the collaboration is so, and we do that when we're writing sketches as well. It's like, you write solos and things that are in your voice and things that are characters that work better by themselves.
Right.
But then you're like, well, when you don't have any ideas or anything, you're working with someone that's two minds working together, building something. And so it's constantly going bing, 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 and it's going up. And there was a sketch, one of my favorite sketches I did with someone who I'm in Sunday company with now. And we were sitting in this very room where we're sitting now.
This room.
This very room.
This is where it happened.
This is where it happened. And he's like, I've always wanted to play just like a really dumb guy. And I'm like, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
And then just from that, we started brainstorming and had an idea of like, oh, we could be like goons for the mob.
Oh, that's fun.
And just guys who just were trying their best. And
to do bad things, but
no, they're just trying to be intimidating.
Okay.
And, and we didn't, and what was really fun too was we barely spoke in the whole sketch.
Yeah.
We just behaved and just did things.
Yeah.
And had action and movement.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. And just from throwing ideas around and you find some amazing stuff. And it also, that was one of the sketches that really kind of, really clicked in with me and just like, you don't need to say things.
Right.
You don't need to talk all the time. It's helpful certain times when you really have to, but you don't need to all the time. Movement. I love movement. I love doing, I'm not a great dancer, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
And, and I do it to the best of my abilities.
Yeah.
But movement is engaging to people.
Right.
Instead of just standing there and talking.
And a lot of performers don't ever think about, how they move. I've even done that lately with jokes. It's like, what happens if I stand in one spot through this entire setup and punchline?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if I pace back and forth?
Yeah.
What happens if I walk up to someone in the front row and tell it to them and everyone else is just hearing me tell it to them?
Right.
And it's crazy how the reaction to the written material changes based on your movement.
Yeah, absolutely. But those movements give levels to your performance.
Right.
And they might be subconscious to the audience, but it does, as you saw, it makes a difference.
Yeah, I'm loving that. I just totally, it comes across from you of this commitment that you can always make it better. You can always add to it. You can always change and improve and grow. And I feel like in magic, one of the things that, and I'll speak for myself, that I am susceptible of is to feel like that routine is now perfected. Mm-hmm. It's done. Now on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But there's something about, and I think this comes a lot from the world of sketch and improv, is that, first of all, with improv, it happens once.
Yeah.
There's something so surreal about...
Cannot be duplicated.
Yeah. So let's do everything we can do to be present in the moment and make the most of this, because it's done. When this is it. Mm-hmm. If it's the greatest thing in the world, that's it. Yep. And if it's the worst thing in the world, that's it.
Right.
So I love that from improv. But then in sketch, I love how it's like you can see a troupe that's done this material for several months.
Yeah.
And every time you see it, it's different. Right. And it's added to, and it's become honed. And and I think performers, it's a good reminder for us who do, whether you're a magician or a musician that does a certain song, to never get to the point where it's just like, oh, this is the way I do the die box, or this is the way I do such and such.
It's very dangerous to become comfortable.
Yeah.
Or what's that word?
Stagnant or
static.
Static.
Yeah, static. Because then, I've always been and this is, I think, just that mindset's come from the improv and sketch world and theater and stuff. But also, I remember, when I was starting in magic, I would do competitions, and I would do, at the conventions and stuff, and I would compete. And Arlen, my mentor, would say, "Why are you competing?" and he instilled in me that you compete to get better. Right. It's not about you're not competing to win.
You're not. People think they win a competition and someone's told them they're the best they can ever be.
Mm-hmm. No. But it's like I don't know if the SAM still does this. They did, and I thought it was the best thing for the convention. Yeah. If you're competing, they would have a critique session with the judges, and you go notes. They give you notes. They give you thoughts. Yeah. And they'd be like, "This is what this is what we thought, and this is where we think you can improve," and, and it was all constructive. Right. And I think that was so great, when you're competing and you're like, I just want to, you're doing it to work the act and because, it's rare you get a lot of work from doing magic contests, outside the magic community. Not a lot of
bookers at magic conventions.
No, and most competition acts, you can't do a full show.
Right. You're going to do 9 minutes for your corporate audience,
Sometimes I think contest acts and magic acts are too long.
Yeah.
Especially, but that's an act per act basis though, some acts you could watch forever.
Yeah.
I think you're always rewriting, you're always evolving, you're always finding new things and allowing yourself. I think what helps with that is when you really just allow yourself to be present. Yeah. And allow yourself to listen. Yep. Because if you're listening and someone laughs at something that you didn't expect them to, and you can follow that laugh. Yeah. Follow the laugh and see where it leads you. Like I started doing card warp. Yeah. And my presentation for card warp was based off of a single line I said one time, and I was like, "Ooh, I like this line." Yeah. And so I started delving down that and finding just things that worked for me within that. And it's always important. I think it's just being present and being
willing to give up to something that works for something that could be better. Like Mark Kalin told me once, he was known for his billiard ball routine. Mm-hmm. And then about, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, he came across, when Steinmeier wrote the Alan Wakeling book, and he came across Alan Wakeling's routine. And he had won competitions for his billiard balls and all stuff. And Mark looked at that and went, "This is better." And he gave up his act to start doing this version that Alan Wakeling came up, which he then made his own.
Sure, yeah.
But just that willingness to say, "Look, I got a thing that works and audiences love, but am I willing to give that up to chase this joke down a rabbit hole?" You know,
and you don't even have to give anything up. Yeah, you can adapt. You can. It's just it's evolving. Right. It's always evolving. That's kind of how I think about it, because it's like, you don't want to, if something's working, it's working. Right. It's working for a reason. Right. But what can you make to make it even better? Yeah. To make it work even more. Right. Or you can get bored. Yeah. Like there, if you do something too many times, you want to an audience, this is the first time. Right. So you have to make it fresh. Yep. And, one of the things that helps is if you do theater, right, doing a play, every time you do that play, you're saying those lines like you're saying those lines for the first time to an audience. Yeah. And you have to have it, you have to be present, you have to be there. Yeah. And improv, I think, is great because it forces you to do that.
Yeah. Oh, you have to.
It forces you.
You can't survive without it. You won't. No. It doesn't work.
It won't work.
Yeah.
And so I look at it as one big tree. Yeah. All these different elements are part of the same tree. You can combine them, you can take from them, one can bleed into the other, and
that's so good, man.
And And I think that it's, every branch is part of this whole big tree of entertainment. And so, you can find all these different things and choose and pick and choose, but it's important to know and be able to control what goes in where and what is this.
Yeah. Well, see, in your situation, during a magic show, you can utilize your abilities as an actor and an improviser and a stand-up comedian, all these things. But you also do all of those things separately as well. Mm-hmm. There are times where you're doing a role and you're an actor, and there are times when you're going to do stand-up. And how do you, this is probably going to sound ridiculous when I say, how do you find any sort of balance in knowing when should I lean more toward trying to do acting gigs and when should I lean more toward comedy?
Yeah, so for what I want to do for my career, that's kind of what I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. So this is how, will this help me, because my main goal is being like an actor and writing as well, but mainly an actor.
Right.
And using writing and all these other elements.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to do overall. So if I'm doing stand-up, how much time are they giving me? So I look at that, if they're like, we want you to do 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So with stand-up, stand-up for me, I do it. I'm not like, it's not my,
it's not like your primary focus.
It's not my primary focus. And so I'm not always writing for it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I have my set that I've been doing and I've been working on for a while. And I have some new things that I put in every so often.
Yeah.
But I'm not going out being like, I want to do open mics and I want to do this and that.
Yeah.
If a show comes around, I have stuff.
Right.
If they give me more time, what I like with, so when I do magic, because my primary focus is in my performance, the magic is, it's clean.
Right.
But that's not what I want people to get out of it.
Right.
It is a vessel for me to perform like my stand-up or comedy. You know what I mean? It's not, I'm not focusing on the trick, if that makes sense. I'm allowing the trick to amplify me.
Right.
And so, then I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll mix in a little bit depending on how much time I get.
Yeah.
Or I look at what is the show for and is this the right venue for that sort of thing. But with Groundlings, for example, that's what I really love to do. I love their style. I love what they do.
Yeah.
I love, their ideology, and I love their philosophy on comedy and how they implement it and things like that. And so I remember, and I was like, magic can come into this.
Right.
But I don't want it to be a crutch, and I don't want it to be like, I don't want to be known as the guy who does magic in all his sketches. Or,
and sometimes in the comedy world, magic is looked down upon for some of the reasons we've talked about, the hacky stock lines or things like that. So you want to stand alone as an improviser.
And so, throughout my training there, I didn't, I would do, like, if I was like just joking around, I would do a trick, but I wasn't performing it. And, so like I would always be focused on, focusing just on the improv, focusing just on sketch writing and, without magic and, just with character and with, just writing for the character and performing as this character. And so at the Groundlings, I'm very particular if I'm doing a magic sketch. I, like last season, I did one magic sketch.
Okay.
This season, I've done one magic sketch, and I've been, but I was very particular.
And when you say you're very particular, what do you about how it comes across, or how you're presented in that, or
exactly? And so, if I'm doing a magic sketch, I'm making sure one, it's character first.
Yeah,
it's character first, and is this character driving the scene, or is the magic driving the scene? If the magic is driving the scene, I won't do it. Because that's not what I want to do.
Right. And
that's, I think the character is what I want to focus on. And that's what I think is stronger.
Right.
And so that's, and so it's, if if it comes my way and it's organic and it comes in and we're like, we can play these characters and bring this in.
Right.
And it works and it's funny and the magic is there and it's fun to do it, but we're playing characters doing it. It's the characters driving the scene.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's my focus with that. So, and also I don't want to do a lot of magic with that.
Right.
I just don't.
That's not the venue for it.
It's not it's, and also, I'm not looking to be a full-time magician for my career. That's not what I want out of my career.
Yeah.
I love doing magic and I love that I can pull from it and it's fun to do and I enjoy doing it and I love performing it.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to influence everything I do and I don't want it to bleed into everything I do.
Right. Again, it's a tool for you. It's a tool that you can use as a performer.
Right.
But ultimately you're a performer.
Exactly.
Sometimes that involves magic.
Yes. And so, with acting as well, I do my best to, make sure I'm not going out for only magician roles.
Right.
And the primary roles I would, whenever I get an audition is ideally, and of course, like if I get an audition for a magician, I'll obviously, give it try my best and do the best I can. But it's one of those things where whatever I'm doing, it's all about my focus is this is my goal. Mm-hmm. This is what I want to do. And then for each thing I'm doing is this, how does that relate to that goal?
Right.
And so that's kind of how I go about, with my work and with doing magic.
Yeah.
And, how does that work toward my goal? And so that's kind of, where my focus is in terms of
where to put your energy and all of that.
Where to put my energy and all that. So I haven't learned a new trick in a while.
Yeah.
I have a lot of tricks backlogged that I do.
Right. Yeah.
And so, it's fun for me to find the performance for those tricks that I know.
Yeah.
Like the homing card, like card warp.
Yep.
I even thought of something for the egg bag, which I rarely do. But the egg bag's a great effect. And I thought of, because to me, my biggest problem with the egg bag has always been why an egg?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know, I haven't seen, and I'm sure there are, but I haven't seen many magicians give a reason for having an egg. It's just an egg.
Right.
I think the reason would probably be because it's very delicate.
Right.
But, okay.
Yeah.
But why, and that's a thing, with magic, with sketch, with anything, the question that helps the most is why. Mm-hmm. Why are you doing this?
Right.
Why is this happening today?
Right.
Why? And so,
if as a performer you can't answer that, then as an audience member, I don't know why I'm watching it.
Right. Why are we watching this?
Right.
What are we seeing?
It's like every story has a major dramatic question. Mm-hmm. Is this couple going to get together at the end of the movie? Are they going to save, Earth from Armageddon?
Right. But why does Harry Potter find the sword of Gryffindor inside the sorting hat?
Right.
Why is it there? And they answer it.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it.
Right.
Why do we have an egg? Why do we produce an egg?
Right.
Why? Because that's the trick.
Your mom made a lot of chicken.
But that's a reason.
Right.
That's a why.
Damn eggs are everywhere.
They're everywhere. You know what I mean? That could be a why, and that could make sense within the context of that story.
Right.
And so I was like, why an egg? And I thought of the most insane reason. And I don't do the egg bag very much, but I was like, that was my approach. Why this?
Yeah. And
why to an audience, why would I be doing this?
That's great.
What is my reason for this?
I want to hear the insane reason. You'll tell me later.
Yes.
A rooster trying to explain to his kids where babies come from.
You're not far off with a rooster.
With a rooster, okay.
With a rooster. It does involve chickens.
All right.
But and I know a chicken is not a rooster; they are different. But yeah, thinking about
why
is this happening? Why?
Right. Because that's what it came with when I bought it on Penguin Magic. It's like we got to think beyond just what's been presented as this is what you do if you're a magician,
right? And that comes in presentation.
Yeah.
And it's all in presentation because, the trick is the trick. The trick can be whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the trick is. It matters why.
Have you ever found yourself at a moment where you're like, I'm just going to give up on the magic thing and just do these other things that I'm passionate about?
When I first moved to LA, I was like, I don't want to do magic.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. And my family said, you should do it. You should still do it.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to be an actor and I don't want to do magic.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you should still do it. There's a lot you can gain from it and a lot that it offers. And also, if you need a job and need to do something,
right,
it's
better than
other things.
Yeah.
And so I said, fine. And I'm so thankful that I stayed with doing it because it's been so beneficial. It does bring a lot to the table.
Right. It's
just about balance for me. And it's about being able to balance, okay, where's my focus? And I need, for me, it's very important to be self-aware and focus on what am I doing? When am I doing it? How am I doing it? And why?
Yeah.
And so
self-auditing I think a lot of us don't do a self-audit and go, okay, where am I at this point? And is it really helping me get to where I want to be? And
yeah. And it's just, being self-aware as a performer, where's my focus? How am I as a performer, like being, it's just, it's kind of going back to a lot of things we've said is, being self-aware in that, okay, this is not my voice or this is my voice,
right,
or is this voice working or is it what I want? And that's kind of, something I always am within, because I love magic. I do. And I love all the things that it offers and I love what it is and I love what it promotes. And, I love just performing.
Yeah.
And I've been able to do like sets where I bring magic into it, but I'm not doing any magic.
Right.
It's just kind of thematically based on magic. And, but because I know tropes and I know, that thing. And it's similar when I was applying for colleges.
Yeah.
I applied, I was like, I just want to study acting. I only want to study acting. I don't want to worry about other things because that's not what I want to do.
Right.
And so I applied and my mom said, you should apply to Temple University in Philly.
Yeah.
Because it's a good school. They have a good program.
Right.
And it's not a BFA. It's a BA.
Right.
And I was like, fine, I'll apply to it.
Yeah.
Because, the more you apply to, the more chances you have of getting somewhere.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want to go to like NYU or Juilliard or like Yale before I understood what a graduate and undergrad, the difference between graduate and undergraduate. But I wanted to focus primarily on acting.
Yeah.
Well, I only got into one school, and that was Temple University.
Wow.
I didn't get in anywhere else. So I went to Temple.
Yeah.
And I could not be more grateful that that's where I went.
Isn't that crazy, man?
It's crazy because you learn acting and you can focus on that.
Right.
But you have to learn other things and you have to learn directing and movement and lighting and staging and all that. I built stage stuff. I did light design for things. I ran a spot op for a show.
Yeah.
And all those elements helped come together when I created the comedy extravaganza, whichever version it was.
Yeah.
stand-up sketch and magic show, knowing what the lighting was and what the direction was for that and where it needed to go, and all those elements came from because I didn't just focus on one thing. Because I allowed myself to experience these other things, originally begrudgingly. But, I think as a kid, we're all like, your parents are like, do this, do that, do this. Yeah. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to
do that.
Yeah.
I want to be my own person.
Right. And then you're like, the more you allow yourself to embrace and understand, the more you have at your disposal. Like, I loved learning about, being in, you had to do gen eds and you had to learn, you had to study literature and you had to study religions and
how much has that helped you as an improviser? Because when things come up and you're like, I know what that is.
Right. I really developed in college a love for history. I love U.S. presidential history. I love learning about presidents. I so many silly things the presidents have done, like the whole William Henry Harrison and John Tyler thing. William Henry Harrison died 30 days into office.
Okay.
Because he wouldn't come inside for a speech. And he got pneumonia and died. For his inauguration speech.
Oh, my goodness.
Got pneumonia and died. John Tyler was his successor. He came in.
Yeah.
But no one liked John Tyler, and no one wanted him there. So everyone called him his accidency.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm like, those things are hilarious. You know what I mean? But also, they're specific.
Right.
Knowing specific things and allowing yourself to bring, like, one of the things that I bring into magic that I learned from doing improv and all that is specificity and being specific.
Yeah.
And using specific information. Because that says a lot.
Yeah, totally.
With just saying a little.
Right.
Like just by talking about your favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
In a thing. Like bringing up, if you're like, I love Baskin Robbins.
Oh, and people are like, oh, he's not just...
He loves and you really
Who
do.
likes ice cream? Y'all like ice cream?
Right. It's like, guys, Baskin Robbins.
Yeah.
They just closed one down. I don't get it. But that's more specific than talking just about ice cream or like chocolate or vanilla or, your things you like. Talk about your experience at Baskin Robbins. Right. It's so much more interesting, I think. But also Baskin Robbins is a funny word.
Yeah.
Or some local ice. Like I remember when I first getting into stand-up, I talked about this one store, and I still hate this store. Gamberg's.
Gamberg's.
It was called Gamberg's. It was a furniture store. My parents made me go to it all the time.
Oh, that's one of those trips with your parents where you're going to be there forever.
Right. Well, here's the problem. We went to Gamberg's, and then we went to Produce Junction right afterward.
Yeah.
And because they were right next to each other.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd go to Gamberg's.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I know we're going to Gamberg's, so I know we're going to Produce Junction right after.
Fruit and furniture.
And it was, I hated it.
Yeah.
But that specific information, even though people might not know what Gamberg's is.
No, but they've got a Gamberg's of their own that everyone reminds them of. They're like, oh,
I hope not.
I hope no one
for their sake that they don't have their own Gamberg's. Gamberg's is terrible.
But the idea of specifics is huge. I mean, even I tell a story about going to visit my grandparents, and I used to just say, every summer we'd go stay with my grandparents. And then when I started saying, my grandparents moved from Long Beach, California to this little piece of heaven in Southern Oregon called Grants Pass. And that line, it was like, whoosh, like you could just feel the audience is like, oh, we're going to hear something.
But they
real.
find out something about you. They know more about you and can connect with you, and then they're more on board with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so, but that specificity is, but back to with college and stuff, learning about all those things. I took a puppetry class. I learned about analysis and all those things, and all those elements can come into just if you just want to do magic, those can all come into magic.
Yeah,
it all can be. The more you allow yourself to find things and be exposed to things, as opposed to just the trick, it just colors it out.
Makes you a well-rounded performer. And all those things, you're not just learning about different subjects. I mean, when you study history, you're learning about people.
Right.
And the fact that they would call him his accidency.
Right.
Like, that's funny.
It's funny.
You're like, people back then had a sense of humor and
Right.
we're still a little ornery and, like.
You learn how, you just learn trends and you learn, you also learn, being exposed to also like what's going on in the zeitgeist and just keep being present with that. Because, if you're telling a joke about something, if you're telling an old joke and not meaning it to be ironic,
right,
or nostalgic,
right,
you might need to rethink that joke,
right? Yeah.
Because unless you're making a reference,
right?
There's nothing. I love a good reference from the past.
Yeah,
love it. But that's in a way that's not an old joke,
right?
An old joke would be something like if you said something and you're like, that was said in the 90s or the 80s.
Yeah.
But if you're making a reference to the 80s or something, or you're bringing something up.
Well, I mean, we've all seen older comics get up and be like, what's with these kids with their saggy pants? And it's like, dude, you've been telling that joke for 25 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But you look at magic acts that haven't changed in decades.
Right.
And you're like, okay, does this still hold up?
Right.
And it can,
right.
But also there's ones that feel like they've been for a while.
I take this foulard. What the hell's a foulard?
But just things like that where you make mention of something, you're like, people don't do that now.
Right.
I mean, unless you're doing it ironically, but you have to be intentionally.
Right. And that goes back to what are you communicating? Because there's always what you see. We've all seen a performer and we've gone, okay, well, the way this goes in his head is not the way it's coming across on stage.
Right.
But when he's doing this, he thinks this is what he's communicating,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's important, man.
Yeah.
Dude, we're at an hour and a half.
Oh, really?
Can you believe that?
Oh, geez.
I can't believe that.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Flies.
Dude, there was I think we could talk for another 4 hours. We're going to have to do another episode soon, if you're okay with that.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
love to do it.
That'd be great.
But dude, tell everybody, because first of all, I love that this podcast, I always say this was never meant to be a how-to. Mm-hmm. This is more of like a survival guide for the industry. But I feel like in this conversation, you shared so many great things that any performer, comedian, improviser, actor, magician can benefit from. But I'm sure there's people out there who are like, man, I want to see what Harrison is doing. How can they find you or follow along, or do you do the social media thing? Or
I am on social media. I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not great on it, but I do have a Facebook page, and I have a Twitter and an Instagram as well.
Awesome.
And I think if you just look up my name on Instagram or Twitter, Harrison Lampert, and then. I think my Instagram is CardShark14 because every other idea I had wasn't available.
Yeah,
so
you get so excited. You're like, this will be my handle. And then it's 27 tries later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then in terms of just upcoming stuff, I usually, right now I'm in the Sunday company, so I'm at Groundlings every Sunday until our closing for this season is October 28th, which is this month. So I don't know if I'll be back. I don't know what kind of the plan, I don't know yet in terms of that. But I always post different things and different shows and stuff because I don't have quite any set thing.
When you were just at Magic Bar, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Recently.
The 8th and 9th I was just there. So I'm at Magic Bar every so often, and I'm around town every so often, just always trying to stay busy.
That's good, man.
But I always kind of post. I have a website as well, which is just harrisonlampert.com, which I should update more than I do. But
shouldn't we all, right?
Yes, but my Facebook page and all that stuff is usually where I'm like, hey guys, I'm doing this. If you're free and want to come, great. And if not, well, no worries.
That's awesome.
If
y'all are listening right now, go to the show notes. I'll put links there in the show notes so they can just click and get to you right away. And
great.
Follow along. But dude,
awesome.
thank you for doing this, man.
Thank you so much. This was a blast. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I loved it, man. I'm going to turn this off. We can keep talking.
Okay, great.